Hey everyone, I'm Ryan. This is Greg Koch. Did I mess up your last name?
No, you nailed it, Ryan.
I nailed it.
Nailed it. You nailed it. Because a lot of times that's a thing. I've done correcting people. I just let their freak flag fly. But you nailed it, Ryan. You planted it.
What's the one that you get the most often that's like, really, that's how you're saying my name?
Oh, it's Koch. Absolutely. They want to call me the reproductive structure of some sort, and I say, you know what? If that's your thing, you go for it.
I mean, it's not bad. Like it's not a bad association. It's like, well, if you're going to be known for something.
Exactly. I'd like to, a proud totem is nothing to be known as the proud totemist by just having a last name that's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. It can go a lot of different places with it. I
mean, a proud totem, like how many euphemisms are we going to find here?
We're going to find a lot. I was weird because I did this thing last week at this college in Wisconsin, and the guy that was my connect to do it, his last name was Koch. And the guy that was the marketing guy there, his last name was Koch. And we were all talking about growing up with that last name and how they said their nickname for years was just Koch. And I got creative with it years ago. I would say, prepare yourself for a Koach attack. So I had people calling me Koach. And I did all kinds of different ways to but in college I had an opportunity. There was a violin player up there. Her name was Kim Cook. Same spelling, but she said Cook. And that's what it means in German. So I had my perfect opportunity to segue from being ridiculed with this last name as an abomination and could have easily just been Greg Cook. And that would have been so easy. But no, I said, no, that's not the way Grandpa said it. So I had to say, it's Koch. Got to get a little spit in there. So I ruined myself, Ryan. I ruined it.
I'm sure Sweetwater's happy that I'm filming Cock Talk here on the premises.
Well, musicians, of course, usually like to engage in this kind of conversation. Not all musicians. I don't want people, well, I don't. I'm much above that kind of fiddly-dee. Well, good for you, my friend. But a lot of us dwell in a strange place where we have fun with things like last names.
If you don't joke about these things, I'm going to say right now you're a liar. Like, everyone jokes about these things. Like this, we're human beings. That's what we do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So anyways, I don't know how familiar you are with me. I have a YouTube channel.
I'm familiar.
You know that I exist. I know that you exist. I know that I met your guitars before knowing about you. I explained that when I came in. I told my awkward, embarrassing story that I probably shouldn't have told, that I demoed one of your guitars at Winter NAMM. And I was like, hey, this is great. And then the comment section blew up like, you don't know whose guitar that is? Like, what the heck is wrong with you? So then I looked you up. I was like, holy heck, he's an amazing player. He's got a huge personality. Like, people told me you were tall. They weren't lying. I mean, people might not be able to tell right now because I'm tall as well, not as tall as you. You're probably like 6'5", right?
6'7", as a matter of fact. From what they tell me, I'm 6'7".
6'7". Yeah, I'm 6'3" if I fudge a little bit over the edge. So like if I was a regular sized person, you would be like, oh my gosh, he's so tall. You're probably similar to Josh Scott. I don't know if you've met Josh Scott.
I don't think I have.
Of J Chest Pedal. He's a tall boy too. Yeah.
You know what? I need to get out more. Ryan, I need to get out more.
This time next year, he's going to be buried in J Chest Pedals. Are you a pedal person?
I'm not opposed. I'm not opposed to the pedals, but it's interesting because I often play without pedals, but I've got the signature amp with, wait for it, Koch amplifiers. No relation, but no accident. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I have an amplifier that kind of has everything on board, including a really glorious harmonic vibrato, which sounds like a univibe, right? Mm-hmm. So I find myself a lot of times just bringing a chord and a guitar and that amp, and I'm done. That being said, I'm not like, I don't use pedals, because I love pedals, and I've definitely used a lot over the years and continued to do so. So yes is the answer, is the short answer.
You could have told me that you hate pedals and I would have been fine with it. You don't have to tap dance around the issue.
But you know what? They're fun. I mean, I do like pedals. They are fun. You know what I typically find is during the Cove, I do all these live streams from the house. I do a couple a week for Fishman. I do a couple for Awhile with guitars, and then we do a band one every other weekend. And so I kind of changed my paradigm of just, amp, guitar, and pedal. I thought, well, I'm home. I can mess around with some stuff. So I put delay through the effects loop, and I brought out an Octavia and a phaser and this, that, and the next thing, and a wah-wah pedal. I got it all set up. And I was having a lot of fun. I was like, well, maybe when I start getting out of the house, getting gigging again, I'll bring all that stuff. So I brought all the stuff out to the first gig. I had it all set up, and by the time I got done with the gig and you're over, you're at the merch table, you're talking to people, so on and so forth, then you got to come back and tear that stuff down. It's like after the first, it was gone. It was back to guitar, cable, and amp.
I mean, you play great without pedals. It's not like you need them or anything like that. And
Well, I appreciate it, but it's just fun, just something to inspire. You know how it is.
Yeah, I know how it is. But you don't need to be told. But you're just a ripping player. I'm got a little bit of the old what's it called, imposter syndrome when I see someone actually playing guitar. I've fudged my way into somehow making a living, making guitar videos while also sucking at guitar. So it's always incredible to me to see someone playing, ripping it up on a professional level. And I came in here, I wandered into the room, and you're just like ripping it up. I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe someday if I ever decide to practice, maybe someday, but it's never going to happen because I'm too busy editing videos all day to make this whole thing work. But let's talk about your guitars now that I've embarrassed you by gushing about your playing.
Oh, well, I appreciate the positive reinforcement. Unfortunately, I thrive on negative reinforcement. But
you know what? Me too. Let's go into that. What's a good example of that? Do you get trashed online or anything like that?
Well, actually, I've been very, very fortunate that the vast majority. Well, you know what? And I don't know entirely why that is, but I think because there's humor involved. Sometimes I'll get people who don't get my humor. Like that guy thinks he's funny. I'm like, well.
I think you're funny.
Well, thank you. I mean, I don't know if I'm funny or not. It's funny to me.
Right.
So I'm laughing. If I didn't think it was funny, I guess I wouldn't do it. So hopefully other people find stuff funny because I'm just kind of riffing, So, but I would say I've been spared a lot of trollery. I have responded to a few trolls over the years, usually in song. I had a song. I did a Wildwood video where I was doing some, kind of Travis Pickin type of a thing, I was playing that, and some guy goes, "Not this ragtime wanker again," and I thought, first of all, that's not ragtime, that's Travis Picking. So I came up with a song called "Ragtime Wanker," and posted it online, and people seem to really quite enjoy it. But that occasionally I'll see little things like that. I'll only respond to a troll if they're funny, because that was funny.
That's a shirt idea right there, ragtime wanker.
Exactly.
I'd wear that.
Of course, now every time I play any kind of Travis Picking thing, people are like, "Hey, it's ragtime wanker." Like, that's me. Be careful what you wish for.
I grew up a teen in the 90s, the sarcastic 90s, where if you wanted to show someone that you loved them, then our shining star and example was Janine Garofalo. We were always trying to tear each other down. So I don't feel love unless someone is trying to be mean to me.
Well, I'm the youngest of 7 kids, so you pretty much had to light yourself on fire to get any attention in my house, and my siblings are, can be brutal, bless them. And so, over the years, they've just been not terribly impressed by, but every now and again, they'll be like, that's all right. Hey, that's pretty good. And just being in Wisconsin, it's just one of those places where, I've had a great run. I enjoy living there, obviously, in the Milwaukee area and so on and so forth. But, there's, you get a fair bit of, well, why would you be any good if you still lived here type of a thing. And
What a weird thing to say. People can live anywhere, especially now. That's so bizarre.
Exactly. But, people have, as I like to say, a zip code consciousness. It's like, well, if your zip code is this, you can't be all that. And I'm like, really? That seems weird. I mean, people haven't said that, but it's kind of the implication of, really? So what are you going to do?
Right.
Or maybe that's just my dysfunction raising its colors and flagging in the wind. We all have our issues, Ryan. What are you going to do?
We all have our issues. Let's be honest. All right, let's get into psychological issues now. We're gonna dive deep into each other's issues and traumas and troubles for about an hour and a half, and Sweetwater's gonna really love this use of time. Now let's talk about your guitars.
Yes.
I started out really being impressed with your guitars. I mean, Reverend guitars are great to begin with, but I come from somewhat of like a surfy sort of background, and I instantly connected with these the first time I tried them. I don't own one yet, but I feel like I should change it now, especially now that Reverend's working with Sweetwater, and those wheels are pretty well greased for me.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is you need to convince me, do I get the traditional hardtail telly style thing, or do I get the P90 wiggle stick sort of thing?
Mr. Wiggles, as I like to call it. Well, there's two different guitars I have now with Reverend, and the story, how it began was, Ken and I met years and years ago. How many years ago? A lot of years ago. And, doing videos out in Colorado. I do all those videos for Wildwood, and we've been doing it for years and years and years. And Ken would come out and would go, here's what's new for Reverend this year. And sometimes it would just be him and I. Sometimes it would be him and another artist of his. And we'd get together and we'd play some and do a bunch of videos. Had a great time. And over a period of time, I would be playing these Reverend guitars. And these guitars are cool, And then about, I don't know how many years ago now, because time just flies. I'd been doing stuff for Fender for years and years and years, probably about 15 years. I did all of this stuff, went all over the damn world, doing clinics and shows and all this other kind of stuff. And then, for a number of different reasons, one of which, different ownership comes in, and the last thing after 15 years, I'm going to have to re-schmooze all these people. No thanks. And so it was one of these things where, it just kind of drifted away a little bit, and I started doing the Wildwood thing and playing a bunch of different other instruments and so on and so forth. Well, one thing that really happened that was interesting is I hooked up with the Fishman folks, and that was kind of a thing I wasn't really expecting, which has some relation to the Fender thing only from the fact that my buddy Richie Fliegler, who was the head of marketing for Fender for years on end and is an alumni, and had called me up and said, hey, I'm working with Larry Fishman. He's got this technology for these new pickups. And I was like, it's great. I really don't care. Because I'm not, to be honest with you, I'm a guy who gets a guitar, and if I like the pickups that are in it, it's like, we're done here. But he started to explain what they did. He's like, look, they got multiple voices, no 60-cycle hum, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, okay, this sounds good. I'd be willing to get, and I'm like, well, how do they look? Because, a lot of times, when you get a pickup that gets rid of the hum, usually it's got like claws and fangs and looks like some kind of predator of a parallel universe of mechanical wrongdoing. So I was not into that. I wanted to look relatively, traditional, but have all of this modern ergonomic functionality. And so, make a long story short, I went out to Boston, hung out with the Fishman people. I was like, holy cats, these pickups are exactly what would be perfect for me. So started working with them, and really wanted to put them in a guitar. So initially, I got a couple of guitars from Awhile. I had a Strat, I had a 55 Custom Shop Telecaster I had them in. They were fantastic. And I'm harassing Ken at like Nashville NAMM or something like that. Ken, what do I got to do to play one of your fabulous after-show parties? He's always throwing these parties. I'm like, I want to party with Ken and the Reverend guys.
Now that I know there's parties.
There's parties, and they're fun parties. And he's like, well, you'd have to play a Reverend guitar. I'm like, well, what if we put some of my new Fishman telly pickups in one of those East Siders? Would that be all right? He's like, yeah, we could do that. So Fishman sent him some pickers, sent him some pickups. He put it in a delicious blue. What was the color of that blue, Ken? It was the deep satin, deep sea blue. A beautiful tone hue. I'm going to tell you that right now.
Beautiful tone hue.
It spoke to my soul. Anyway, so I started playing this guitar, carina body, roasted maple neck, and I started playing this guitar. I'm like, holy catabos, this thing sounds magnificent. And in comparison to the price of my other instrument, the price differential was pretty staggering, whereas the tonal difference, there was tonal difference, but not several $1,000s worth. So then I started getting into some thinking. And then right around the same time, Ken's like, hey, you know, you and I got this rapport. I'm thinking about doing this Ken and Greg show thing where you come to Toledo, we play a bunch of the new Reverend guitars, we just kind of shoot the breeze and play a little bit. You want to do that? I'm like, hell yeah. So I came, we rocked, we ate at Tony Pacco's. Have you been to Tony Pacco's in Toledo, Ryan?
I have not been to Tony Pacco's. I have not been to Toledo.
Well, there's your reason to go. It's a hot dog establishment of unparalleled deliciousness. Be that as it may. So we went there and we started shooting the breeze one day, and he's like, hey, you know, no pressure, but, you know, Joe and I were talking, and if you ever wanted to do a signature guitar of some sort, we'd love to talk to you about it. So I was ruminating on that, and then I said, well, you know, I always wanted a T-style guitar that was slightly larger bodied, because I'm a big son of a bitch, as we discussed. And every time I'm playing one of these regular size guitars, people are like, is that some kind of ukulele? Is it a 3/4 style guitar? Yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, no, Lilliputian, I'm just a Sasquatchian soul trying to express myself through song, and I don't want to be, you know, tall shamed, okay? So I thought that maybe to mitigate this whole scenarios, I might get a guitar that's just slightly larger that looks a little bit more proportionate to the larger sized individual. And so he's like, no problem. We can do that for sure. And I go, you have no problem using the Fishman pickups? He goes, hell no. So next thing you know, we started doing some ciphering. And we put together what was the first Gristle Master guitar, which is this morsel right here, as a matter of fact.
That's the first one?
This is the first one. And this is in the color, wait for it, Blucifer.
Blucifer.
That's it. And I wanted a transparent kind of sonic-y blue. And that's what this is. They're Carina bodies, so you see the wood grain through it. The back is more opaque, if I can use those growing up words.
Oh, yeah. Like, I didn't notice it at first, but like you look at it and I'm picking up little bits of grain in through it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
it's a really nice color.
I got a lot of miles on this beast.
It's like Coke bottle blue.
Yes. And I love it. So my pickups are on board. We got a roasted maple neck. Of course, I got the locking tuners. Wilkinson bridge I wanted. This is kind of interesting, Ken. I don't know if you'll... This is kind of funny because I wanted the brass saddles, the compensated brass saddles, because they just have a little bit more twang. And some guy piped on and goes, I really love Greg, but, you know, at a Fender clinic years ago when he was playing a 6-saddle bridge, he's like, you know, that stuff with the brass saddles is a bunch of BS. And you know what? I may have said that at the time, but, you know, after I've been to Wildwood and I probably have played like 4,000 guitars, I've heard the difference between brass and stainless steel and so on and so forth. And I'm here to say brass has got a thing. It's got a thing, doggone it. Now, is it going to ruin my world that there's not brass? But no. But given my druthers, a brass seat 3-saddle bridge that you can intonate, I'm going to go for that. All right, so there we have it. So we wanted that. That's on there, and it has the pickups on it, and the pickups all have 2 voices. So should we play this one first? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we're not going to play it. You're going to play it.
All right.
Because my imposter syndrome is like ridiculous right now, guys. Like you have no idea. This is going to be the best playing that's been on this channel in a long time. So here we go.
Wanker right there. I was doing a little ragtime wanker. Anyway, so the neck position is going. What this little button does is it gives me a little, so it's a second voice that's just got a little bit more heat. All the things you want to tell you. There's all that kind of, you know, all those telly-wahs and all that kind of crazy stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff we all do all the time, the normal stuff.
Well, you know, it's good for the kids. And but there's no 60-cycle hum. And the way that the pickups are made, you know,
that's the name of my channel, 60 Cycle Hum.
I know.
So every time you say that, like I've got to look at the camera and wink a little bit.
There's no 60-cycle hum, except there is because you're watching it. So I'm not trying to infer that these pickups are trying to do away with your channel. Okay, I'm just saying.
I start fading away Marty McFly styles.
No fluence has killed Ryan.
They sound great, and that was something that I was really impressed with the first time I tried them. I used to really hate humbuckers that would split into singles. I'm a single coil lover,
Right.
but there is some convenience to that, to having the output change and having the kind of like character change and having some twang when you want it and stuff. But let's face it, you're compromising and taking a compromised single coil tone to get a humbucker. But that's really fun because it is the same like single coil sort of tone, but you're getting like a humbucker output without change. Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a hotter signal than a regular single coil, without a doubt. But you don't. But it almost. What's weird is that it sounds underwound. Mm-hmm. But it's got the output of it's got a little bit more oomph. You know what I mean?
And it's still got the twang. It doesn't shift into that kind of like soft, murky, like low mid pusher thing you get with a humbucker.
Right, exactly. Now, to achieve this stuff, I mean, one of the things when Richie first called me up that I was a little scared about is like, what do you feel about a battery on board? I'm like, batteries? Oh, no. But there's a lithium-ion battery in this little compartment here. And in the input jack, there's a little mini USB thing that you plug it in and you charge it up, and for an hour and a half charge, you get 300 hours of plugged-in playing time. And once they told me that, I'm like, well, that's cool, right?
I maybe have played 300 hours in the past 5 or 6 years.
Well, as I like to say, if you got a gig that lasts longer than 300 hours, I think it's time to unionize. You know what I'm saying? It's time to wear some yellow vests, y'all, to your gigs and say, you know what, this is a bunch of bollocks.
Signs outside, we refuse to play 300-hour gigs, and people driving by are like, what?
What's a gig? What's music? Those people you ignore in the corner. That's who. Sorry.
It's funny to think about like I don't really want a battery in the guitar, but there's been batteries in EMGs forever, but like I know it's not the same thing at all. But like I have this thought in my head, like being told there's going to be batteries in it and having the thought like how many D cells are we talking about? Like this is going to be like a kid's toy.
Right.
Like 8 pounds heavier, and it's going to cost $40 every time I change the batteries in it.
Exactly.
But battery technology is so amazing now that I have no doubt that thing can last forever. And you'll forget that it's battery powered. And then one day the light will shine, like start flashing, like, oh yeah.
Yeah, when the battery starts flashing, you've got, I think it's 10 hours. So, I mean, I've never even come close to that happening. So when you plug it in to charge it up, it goes red to say it's charging, and then it goes green when you're fully charged. And I change strings after every 3 gigs because, they get all filled with battle mung, from playing at, Trixie's Bar and Grill where you've been feasting and whatever, and you get a little bit of grout on there. I like to call it tone grout, Ryan. Really kind of brings the jams to the fore. But I need to get them
I call it tone jam.
Tone jam.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't call it that. That's why I stumbled on it, but it felt good to say.
It was right.
Yeah.
It was right along. It was on point, as the kids say.
The joke is that it rhymes with toe jam, and that's gross, and that's the joke.
Toe jam, ladies and gentlemen. I like it. It's a good name for a band. What?
I'd go watch Tone Jam.
Absolutely. So, anywho, I change my strings after every 3 gigs or so anyway, so, I just top her off, plug it in and top her off before I go to the gig once. I'll be sitting around going, I can't remember what was the last time I plugged this thing in, so I'll just plug it in. I don't know why I'm using that voice. It just happens. I get possessed by some kind of rural Wisconsinite. Anyway, so I'll just plug it in and top her off. I've never run out of... Now, that being said, if you would run out of power, you would be silent. But it's kind of like a cell phone. It's like people got, guess what? If your phone runs out of juice, you're not going to be engaging in spirited conversation with various individuals. So you've kind of got in your mind of, well, at some point in the next 300 hours, I'm going to have to plug this thing back in.
Even if you get to the point where like the light is flashing and you notice it 2 hours late, you still have 8 hours left.
Right.
If you're 8 hours away from being able to charge something, what are you even doing with an electric guitar in your hand?
Right.
Like, where are you? Like, you're on an island or you're lost in the desert somewhere. Like,
Right.
The electric guitar is the least of your worries at that point.
You deserve to be silenced. It's my motto. But that being said, you could plug it in while you were playing, and it would go. You would just look extra tethered, and maybe people are into that kind of thing. Oh, he's got 2 chords coming out of his guitar. He must be really good.
What's his secret? He's got all these chords coming out. He's got some sort of device in his pocket. You've got a USB pocket, like a battery in your pocket, just to charge your guitar while you're playing. I want to know where a lot of the visual design elements came from. I know that you had the guitar made a little bit bigger, but there's a couple things that I really like about this. I really like the raised, like kind of Firebird sort of center block. I really love the sharper edge to the pickguard here meeting with that. I even really love the standalone pickup ring on the neck. Like, that's really fun. I love kind of that 50s, 60s aesthetic, and is bringing a lot of that in while also doing different stuff with it. So I'm wondering, did a lot of that come from you, or did that come from Reverend design team, or? It
was both. I've got kind of a weird guitar this guy out in California made for me. He's got a little company called Ventura County Vintage. And he made basically a Telebird. So it is a Firebird body with tele controls with a Firebird neck pickup. It's a Johnny Winter signed Mojo Tone pickup, I might add. It makes me want to engage in fiendish Johnny Winterisms, which are always good, I think. Anyway, and so it's a cool looking guitar, and I would play it on live streams every now and again. And Joe Naylor said to me, "Hey, you know what? I saw that guitar you were playing. What do you think about a raised section on your guitar?" And I go, "I think that would be fabulous." And it was kind of twofold were the purposes, aesthetically, and the fact that this raised section is the traditional width of a T-style guitar, and the other parts are recessed. So that actually worked as a little bit of weight relief because you took a little wood off there. The pickguard was just kind of a form of function after we raised that middle section that seemed to be appropriate. But this little surround is kind of an interesting story. Initially, I thought it'd be cool to have a metal one to match the nickel or the substance of whatever this substance is, this metal pickup. And but when I got the prototype, I was like, man, I love the way this guitar looks. I love the way it plays. I love the way it sounds. But the neck pickup seems to be a little wimpy in comparison. So then we started doing some ciphering, Ryan. And what we ciphered is that the metal that he used for the surround was messing with the impedance of this pickup and just messing with it enough that it changed the tone. So then we had some choices to make. We could either delay production by a few months trying to figure out, well, what metal can we use that's not going to mess with the pickup? Or he just took the pickguard material and made a surround and looked at it. And I thought, well, that looks even kind of cooler because it looks more unexpected.
Yeah.
So we decided to go with that. Now, I will get people every now and again on the intergoogs, and they'll say, yeah, the guitar's cool and everything, but I hate that surround. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And I always respond very rationally when people say this if I'm within earshot. I go, well, I'll tell you what. When you get your own signature guitar, you can do whatever the hell you want. But in the meantime, I'm digging the surround, so take and eat. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I really like it. To qualify my opinion, I have a graphic design and commercial art background, and to me, it looks really cool. Like it's a throwback to kind of like a kind of department store guitar kind of aesthetic, like your 60s, kind of like your
the Burns guitar,
Airlines K sort of thing, like where it's a little bit funky, it's a little bit unexpected. Also, I feel like I like pickups in pickguards. I think it does something fun visually to separate it from the body. It's always a little bit boring to me when I see a Tele style guitar where the pickup is just mounted in the wood. And just that little bit of visual interest is, I think it's really great. So,
well, I'm glad you dig it. I love it. I think it looks cool in the gang.
It also kind of looks like there's a hint of like, hey, if you wanted to, you could drop like a mini bucker in here or something like that. I don't think you could, but like there's a little bit of that like wild, like, hey, you got ideas, don't you?
Right.
Like there's a big hole under there. Like you could put something in there.
Wait a minute. Security. But yes, there is a hint of the forbidden.
Right. It gives you ideas.
It does indeed, which is a dangerous thing, and I embrace it. Mm. So then we started thinking about other edition of the guitars, and I play differently on a Gibson scale, and with a beefier sounding pickup, there's kind of a whole nother you just get inspired to do things a little on the different side. And over the years, I've messed around with various different P90 guitars. And so I had mentioned to our friends at Fishman, I was like, we should really work on a P90. Would you guys be interested in doing another pickup with me? And they're like, absolutely. So we started working on I simultaneously reached out to Ken and said, what if we did a shorter scale version of the Gristle Master with a set neck, and then we will use these new Fluence Gristle tone P90 pickups at that point as yet to be designed. But I did want to use the Reverend P90s as one of the sources because their P90s are particularly delicious. And but I wanted, with the Fluence technology, it allows you to get multiple voices, no name of show, 60 cycle hum, and they retain the visual aspects of the P90. So I think there's a lot of people that like P90s. I think there's a lot of people who aren't really familiar with what P90 should sound like. I'm not going to say that they're the epitome of every great P90 ever, but they really sound very, very good in comparison to the P90s I was going for. And they're killer, man. I'm going to tell you that right now. So we worked on the pickups to get it done. And let me grab that guitar and kind of mess around with that a little bit. We're gonna
Sure.
Clicking and clacking. Because we're old school here. We're just going to click it. Oh, no! It'll still be in tune. Don't we worry. It'll still be in tune.
Don't worry, it's just the first one. No big deal.
Right. So we decided, of course, it got two voices. So we got this kind of glorious... velvety glass neck pickup. Bridge pickup, I refer to it as quack. Some people think that's a derogatory term. I don't think it is. In the middle position is obviously both. So the second voice just gives you a little bit more. But the other thing I wanted an out of phase thing, but I wanted the, especially because we were going to go with the tele control panel. I wanted like a preset that would be out of phase, but when you do that Peter Green out of phase wiring and you're in the middle position on a Les Paul and you just back off, it's fully out of phase, you back off on either volume just a skosh and it gets like this other fatter sound. That's what this is. So when inside there in this console, I don't know where it is because I don't mess around with that inside business, but there's the ability to roll back the neck pickup a skosh so that you get this sound, which I'm about to unleash by...
So there's an internal trim pot in there or something?
Correct. Yep.
That's smart.
So if I pick up the tone control now in that middle position, I get this kind of... And when you do that in comparison to the... it's a lot more... You get the idea. But it also works on that little button, gives it a little bit more heat as well. So I diggity doggone love it. It sounds great. It looks great. They come in a bunch of different colors. This is the obviously kind of a gold top thing we were going for. It's the Venetian gold, but there's a cool turquoise like the one over there. The Tosa turquoise. My hometown is Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. So we got the Tosa turquoise version. And then we have a black version. What are we calling the black, Ken? Is it midnight black?
Black.
Just black. I thought it was going to be something fun.
No.
Like maybe...
Ken's delivery of black was funnier. Like he was just like, it's black.
It's black. Yeah, what kind of fun color do we have for that name? Just black.
Black.
Maybe that's what it should be spelled. Just black. Okay. All right. I see what we did there. Anyway, so I love them. And so when I go to gigs, I bring Old Blue and I bring the gold, or depending on what mood I'm in. I change the colors up every now and again. But I literally get everything I need done out of these two rascals. I do have a humbucker fueled guitar or two that I might bring along as well with the Fishman Fluence classic humbuckers. But for the most part, these two guitars get it done for old Driophocles. That's me. That's my Roman name, or my Greek name, Driophocles. I saw it in a dream somewhere.
What? Driophocles?
Driophocles.
Driophocles.
A philosopher,
Okay.
if you will. Imagine me in a toga, you know, with...
I already was imagining you in a toga, so
it's not
that's
wrong.
funny that you bring that up.
Well, you know, I force that upon people with my powerful life force. That was weird, but you know, here we are.
That was weird. We're sorry. We're sorry. No, like I haven't played that one yet, that model yet, but I really enjoyed the first version that I played at I can't talk at Winter NAMM. So I'll if there's any of those out on the floor, I might go film one of those later.
I should mention about the Bigsby. I wanted a Bigsby on it, and I will tell you, I like the sound of Bigsby's. I like the look of Bigsby's. Most of the Bigsby's I've played in the past, prior to my affiliation with Ken and with Reverend, has been a little bit of a battle to keep them in tune. But Reverend has a way of dealing with the Bigsby's. Especially, I guess what converted me thoroughly was I have a Reeves Gabrels Space Hawk that has a Reverend Reeves Gabrels Space Hawk that has a Mr. Wiggles on it, as I like to call it, of the Bigsby Persuasion. And Reeves brought to the fore a special spring that he discovered in many of his Gabrelsian adventures that he put in his Mr. Wiggles that, you know, allows it to be very, very conducive to wiggledom. And you can do warbles and all kind of other manner of, you know, whammy bar antics. And the guitar stayed in tune wonderfully. So I thought, well, hell, let's put one of those on this beast and really kind of bring it to the fore. There's definitely a thing that the Bigsby's bring. There's a twang to them. You know, it's kind of like when if you play a Les Paul with a Bigsby on it versus one that's not, you can definitely hear the difference. And it's a personal preference thing. But I think it's so. We've had people, could I get one without the Bigsby? Because I think a lot of people have maybe experienced what I experienced prior to when you look at the Bigsby and all of a sudden you're in some kind of pan-Egyptian tuning. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying that that's not a good way to roll. I'm just saying that, you know druthers, you know, you'd probably want to be, you know, A440, you know, somewhere in there. So as a result, I will say that this guitar, coming with the Bigsby, you will be pleasantly and wonderfully surprised by the functionality of it. And we managed to keep these guitars under 8 pounds, doggone it, quite a bit under 8 pounds. So, because that's a concern. You know, you get a guitar with a Bigsby on it, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, you're hunched over, you're in pain, you need a staff, chiropractor, and that's not necessary for this particular instrument.
Yeah. I'm a big Bigsby lover. I love my wiggle sticks.
Yep.
Famously, and I've used one of those springs. I ordered one aftermarket and I put it on a different guitar, on a Gretsch Electromatic baritone.
Yeah.
I think the baritone strings were a little bit much for it. It pulled the bar too close to the body for my taste. But I was impressed with how soft and smooth it is compared to the stock spring. And I was like, I'm going to put this in something else. I'm going to put it in my Hallmark, which is like a Mozarty sort of thing.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, those springs are really cool. It's like a really inexpensive way. Like if you have a Bigsby and you're like, this is too firm, or it feels like I'm having tuning stability issues and stuff like that. If you've already checked your nut, might as well like check out one of these springs because they're actually pretty cool. Like visually, they're different. Like the wire's thinner, like the winds are a little bit different. Like I can tell just by looking at it that it's the Reverend spring. Well, obviously it would because it's a Reverend guitar, but you know what I mean? Like it looks different. Like they're kind of matte. The wire's a little bit thinner. There's a stability that you get with them that you don't get with the stock springs, and they feel soft.
Yeah.
I like that. It's like I have an older Bigsby where the spring's really broken in and really soft, and then you get newer Bigsbys and you feel like you're fighting like against a raw piece of metal sort of thing. Like it's not a spring anymore. So I think it's really smart. I wish when I did my video with the Gretsch, I called out to Reverend as I look at Ken. I was like, could I get one with like one extra wind on it? Oh. Get one that goes a little bit higher, you know? So there's my request. Nobody's asking for something.
One extra wind is what is needed.
You can get one of them, but you can get 3,000 of them.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So Ken just said, I can't get one, but I can get 3,000. Realistically, I know that's the way it works. Like you have to order those things in bulk. People in my comment section were like, well, if you go to this motorcycle website, you can order like a bunch of springs, and looking at it, it's like, no, they want me to order like 20 to 50 of them. And I'm like looking at the specs and it's like, I have no idea if one of these will be better or worse than what I'm already using.
Right.
Like it's, guitar modding ain't always easy, guys. Like you can't just go buy the one thing. It doesn't always exist.
Correct.
So anyways, we've got to find a way to end this because all things must end. I've heard you in this video at least once, and before we started filming, talk about food a couple times. I'm being peer pressured to go check out Skyline Chili. Have you ever had it?
I have had Skyline Chili. That's more of the Cincinnati version. It's got noodles in it.
There's one here. I've never had it. There's one a few miles away from my hotel. I might be meeting people there tonight. Is it worth the trip for me, or should I?
I would say yeah. I would go. Yeah, there's Gold Star and Skyline Chili are the two, as I remember correctly. I might be wrong on that, but there's definitely kind of the two versions of the Cincinnati style chili. I find it satisfying, although you may need to get a Charmin endorsement at some point in the next 24 hours. But
someone else told me, like, I hope you're not flying tomorrow because things might get rough. I am supposed to be filming tomorrow. Like, how rough are things going to get? Like, is this guaranteed that I'm going to be on the toilet after this?
I will just say that the sound of blort might be something that might enter your lexicon in the next 24 hours.
What am I getting myself into?
but not necessarily. As long as I would say it's always a good idea to have some Tums at the ready and some Pepto.
Is it spicy?
No, but I think you can add additional ancillary spice accoutrement.
Is it like a greasy thing? What makes it so lubricated?
Well, there's definitely. What's interesting is that years ago, and I don't know if this place does the same thing, but back in the Milwaukee area, there's a chain called George Webb's. It's a 24-hour restaurant, and what's great about it, they have 2 clocks on the wall because they figure many of their patrons come in there in such an altered state that they're going to need to have 2 clocks in order to decipher what the time is. And they have a delicious chili. It's one of those things, do I get breakfast or do I get burgers? And sometimes you just do both. But it has a chili that's very, very delicious. It's similar to the Cincinnati. It's got noodles in it. It's got beans, that kind of stuff. And I thought, I'd like to make some of that stuff at home. I wonder what's in it. So I go online and I find the recipe for the George Webb's chili, and it involved like a quantity of what they just called beef suet. So I would imagine it's just like beef fat that they throw in there. And that's, I'm sure, one of the elements in this brew that we're speaking of.
Just an industrial tube of grease, and they cut it off and they squeeze it out.
And
that's what I'm imagining.
Stir it in.
Lard is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Suet sounds more forbidden.
The way you talk about food, I can tell that you're a food person. You like food.
I am. It's been difficult because during COVID, I also walk a lot. I walk about between 3 and 5 miles a day to try to mitigate the carnage caused by my feasting. And I went through a thing where I lost the equivalent of like a Backstreet Boy weight-wise during the Cove. But now it's kind of creeping back up there again because...
And those Backstreet Boys are all middle-aged now, so that's,
exactly.
They're not small anymore.
Exactly. So it's become a problem because the problem is that food is delicious.
Oh.
Like, people are like, oh no, well, what diet? And you're like, there's no secret about dieting. You have to not eat and exercise and drink a lot of water, and all of those things suck. So you wane back and forth, and you get to be my age, and then you get to be in your 50s, and you're like, who am I trying to impress? Where's she going? You know what I'm saying? I'm just kidding. I'm talking about my lovely wife who could dump me in a moment and find some other stallion, probably worth millions of dollars. But be that as it may, she's decided to stay with Ultriophocles. And as a result, I try to sculpt myself every now and again so she's not embarrassed in public. So, but again, it's hard because food is delicious.
Food is delicious. I agree. Do you cook at all?
I do a bit. I do the grilling in my home, but I'm not real. I mean, I have some things that I can make, but I just know of where to go.
I do all the cooking in my house, but I love eating out too. I've got a secret chili ingredient that I use in my chili. So I'm interested to try the chili tonight to see how I feel about it. I put peanut butter in my chili.
Oh, I've heard of that.
It's just a little bit like a teaspoon for the whole pot, and you just stir it in, and it does something. It the nuttiness works with beef and the fat in a way, and it brings in this velvety quality. You don't taste peanut butter when you eat it, but you definitely taste the difference between it being there and not being there. Last question. We won't make this 3 hours of food talk, even though I could do that. Is there somewhere around here that you would recommend I go to instead of Skyline? So if I go to Skyline tonight and I'm like, it's only all right, I should have gone where Greg said. What would you recommend?
Well, I've actually discovered new places the last time I was here that were very, very good. But I would say if you have not gone to a place that's just a glorious slice of Americana here in Fort Wayne, is a place steak joint called the Cork and Cleaver.
The Cork and Cleaver. I like the name just by itself.
Well, what's fun about it is that, it's kind of an old school supper club vibe, Mm-hmm. And they got the salad bar of doom and destruction. And but they bring the menu, and the menu's on a cleaver. So it's
dude, that's fun.
And it's a weighty cleaver. Ken, it's a weighty cleaver. That thing weighs, if you wanted to do some damage,
They're handing you a weapon for the menu.
That's correct. And because it's such a satisfying place to feast that it has not resulted in any kind of accidents or...
By the time the meal's over, everyone's too slow to fight with the cleavers.
Yeah, there's no acts of aggression with the cleaver at the Cork and Cleaver.
One cleaver per table.
That one cleaver per table, you got to pass that sucker around. So, but it is a delicious place to experience, without a doubt. I would say if you have not been, when you come to Fort Wayne, that should definitely be on the list, on the short list, the Cork and Cleaver.
Side story. I'll look it up because maybe I'll make my way over there. I'm not leaving till Saturday. I pulled an old cleaver out of my father-in-law's garage, and I've been keeping it solely because it's just about the right size that it could be like a really cool control plate on a guitar. And I've had it in my head someday I'm going to make this happen somehow. It's going to be a part of a guitar somehow. I think it would just look really cool. It would add 2 pounds to the guitar, but
it would be worth it.
It'd be worth it. So anyways, this has been amazing, Greg. This is all just happenstance. I have had this booked to come here for a month. I show up and they're like, oh, Greg's going to be here. Maybe we can track him down and do something. That sounds fantastic.
Well, awesome. I'm so glad you did. It's fun hanging with you. Causing trouble.
Absolutely. It's great to meet you. I met your guitars first. Now I met you. Now we're all best friends, and we're going to hang out and call each other on the phone.
That's right. Say, hey, how did you like the Cork and Cleaves?
All right. Bye, everyone. Click all the links down below to check out these guitars. Sweetwater carries Reverend now, and they're probably going to carry him for a long time because it sounds like they're a smash hit. They're just flying out the door. So if you want one, get one.
We should probably also mention that you can buy the Fishman pickups also as aftermarket and pop them in your instrument of choice. Both the P90s, which just came out, which are called the Fishman Fluence Gristle Tone P90s, and of course the initial Gristle Tone. Look,
there we go.
Look at Ken.
Ken's bringing him in.
Can you ding it?
So yeah, check out I'll have the links. Thank you, Ken. Thank you for coming out, everybody here. Thank you for Sweetwater for hosting all this, and thank you for giving me your precious time instead of doing what you're probably here to do, is to show this stuff to Sweetwater reps.
No worries.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Stay grounded.